Good evening. The December 9th, 2021 meeting of the Rent Control Board is called to order. Would the Secretary please take roll?
Yes. Commissioners Rosas.
Here. Sorry, I thought I was on mute. Here.
Commissioner Foster.
Here.
Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
And Chair Sultan.
Here.
Vice Chair Duran is absent and will not be joining us today.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone wishing to address the board on a specific item on tonight's agenda should have contacted our board secretary prior to the meeting. If you would like to make a public comment, feel free to request to do so in the chat function in Blue Jean, or you could dial 1-408-740-7256 using meeting ID 857-617-732 and passcode 8663. We will recognize the speakers and arrange to have them speak when it is their turn in the queue. Moving on to the minutes of the last meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the board's last meeting?
I've had an opportunity to review them, and I so move that we approve the minutes.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Secretary Ho, would you take a roll call vote on the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes. Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioners Rosas.
Yes.
And Chair Sultan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to special agenda items. Do we have any special agenda items for tonight, Ms. Condon?
Yes, I have a few announcements this evening. So as I've mentioned for the past several months, there is money available through the state's COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act for anybody who is facing eviction for non-payment of rent due to the impacts of COVID-19. Over the last month, an additional 162 households in Santa Monica have been served with assistance. And so an additional $2 million has benefited Santa Monica tenants and landlords. So I really encourage anybody who is facing eviction to contact housingiskey.com or to call 833-430-2122 to file an application, because submitting an application can also help forestall any eviction until you learn whether or not you're qualified for the rental relief. So please look into that. And if you have questions, you can contact our office, talk about that. And there are both city staff members and volunteers from local community organizations that are available to assist people with filling out these applications. There was more information about the eviction protections that are continuing in our newsletter that was mailed out right after Thanksgiving. So all property owners and tenants should have received that a couple of weeks ago. Next week, we're doing 2 seminars virtually. The first will be on Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. It's the always popular landlord-tenant forum that we co-host with the city attorney's office. We'll be covering new regulations and ordinances and sharing important news for the rental housing community. And then on Thursday, we'll be hosting our Maintenance of Rental Property seminar from 9 till 11 a.m. And this will include presentation by the city's Code Enforcement Division. And it's a great opportunity for the community to learn more about the basic standards for maintenance of residential rental properties. Anybody interested in attending can contact our office by emailing us at rentcontrol@santamonica.gov or by calling us at 310-458-8751. And finally, I'd like to give you some news that we are aiming to go live with our new database system at the end of January. So we are,
No way.
yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's been a lot of work by our project team. But we're zeroing in, doing a test of the data conversion at this point, and final testing of the workflows that we will have when we go live. There will still be some improvements that we'll be doing on it, of course, after we go live. But this is a pretty significant achievement. If everything goes according to plan, that will be happening at the end of January. We're planning a special mailing. You'll remember you included money in the budget for an additional mailing this year to get the word out to the community. And we'll be encouraging people to sign up for accounts for the public portal portion of the database, which will allow property owners to submit registration forms and tenancy registration forms, exemption applications. All of those will not be available when we start, but eventually all of those will be available, as well as petitions to be filed. So hopefully everything goes according to plan, and that will be happening at the end of January. We're starting training next week with our staff, and it's an exciting moment. So that's what I have for this evening.
Thank you. Well, those were lots of exciting announcements, including about the new web portal. That's going to be really wonderful for everybody, including all the tenants in Santa Monica. So very much looking forward to that, as well as to the landlord-tenant presentations.
Great.
Okay, great. This is the public comment period, but I don't believe we have any requests for public comment. Is that true, Secretary Ho?
Yes, that's correct.
I believe time to move on to our jurisdictional items. Give me a second. Excellent. Okay. So our first jurisdictional item is owner occupancy exemption. Let's see, item 10A1, case number 1823. We have a staff report?
Certainly, Commissioners. This is an owner occupancy exemption by Mr. Christopher Gold, who lives at 620 Grant Street, and he bought this property back in January of this year, and he said that he moved on it in March. This property has just 2 units, and title records show that Mr. Gold's the only owner of this property. So the real question that's before you is whether he's actually been living there as his principal residence since at least May 20th of this year. And he submitted, first off, the title records don't show that he owns any other property in Los Angeles County, and that's also what he said. He also submitted utility records and financial records and various government records that all list this property as his mailing address. There are no tenants on this property, so we sent a hearing investigator to do a virtual site visit, and her report also is consistent with his claim that he lives on this property. So for those reasons, we are asking you to approve his exemption and adopt the attached findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Thank you. Commissioner Foster, I believe?
Yeah, I just have a quick question for staff. Owner occupancy exemptions are a very big deal. And it seems like a small deal when it's a cut and dried case. I don't have any doubt that this person lives on the property and that we're going to exempt it. But when I read that there are no tenants on the property, I sometimes feel like a sense of relief, like, oh, okay, no one's potentially being displaced. But I can't help but wonder if anyone was already displaced, perhaps in the real estate transaction that took place or anything else. Can you tell us anything about the last 2 tenants of these 2 units before the property was turned over? Or what the what the registered MARs were? It just might give us an indication if it was market rate or...
If you would permit me, I will tap into our rent database, and I can, if I can get on and look at what we have in our database.
I just see us losing units every single month to this for under rent control. And, Tracy, maybe you can also update us again. It's been a while since we've heard how many lapses, because it'd be nice to know when units are coming back under rent control.
Huck, I just tried to sign on to the system and I wasn't able to get in right now. So we might not be able to answer the question you have, Commissioner Foster, about the rent level.
If you can't, that's all right.
I was able to, I believe, do so. So if I could just have your, let me see if this is a false alarm or if I'm actually in.
No, you probably are. Actually, sometimes it works better from outside the office than inside the office.
All right. So this is just what we have in our records, Commissioner. So this, as I said, there's 2 units on this property. The first unit, we don't have any post-1999 tenancies that have been registered. So all we have are the records from the pre-99 old rent control records. So that's what we have for that unit. And then the second unit, Unit B, it's the same thing. So there has been no registration of tenancies since 1999 on this property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And although I don't have the numbers that you requested, we are continually lapsing owner-occupied exemptions as we do the monitoring program that the board put in place several years ago. I can bring you updated figures at a future board meeting, but I know that Mr. Mordezai and Mr. Costello and others are working on that project. Every month we're sending out the requirements that the owners recertify that they're living on the property. And it's been a very effective program that we've put in.
I'd love it at a future meeting when you're ready, when your staff is ready, to maybe give us an update on that.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you. I would move that we approve, that we support the findings of fact and conclusions of law and grant the owner occupancy exemption. Forgive me for tripping over my words.
Second.
Hey, let's take a vote on that, please.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Torosis.
Yes.
Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
And Chair Sultan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10B1, which is a permanent exemption for new construction, case number 1825. May we have a staff report on this item?
Certainly, Commissioners. Community Corps bought a block of about 10 properties that along High Place and Virginia Avenue back in 2002 to redevelop as an affordable housing project. And in so doing, they then, the board approved a removal for 25 of controlled units that were collectively on these properties. That was done back in September of 2008. Community Corps went ahead and they demolished those buildings and they built this project, and then subsequently they came and they registered the 25 replacement rent control units as they were required to do so. And now they're basically applying to exempt the remaining 22 units as new construction. These are clearly new construction. They're not otherwise subject to the rent control law, and for those reasons, we recommend that the board approve the new construction exemption application and adopt the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Can I ask a quick question, Chair?
Yes, please.
I'm so curious. The dates really beg the question. 13 years. So when were the units, I'm just so curious when they were completed.
Right, Commissioner, this is more like a cleanup. They did what they did with they had to register the 25 rent control units at the time. And so these are left in our database, and they are legally exempt, but you have to approve that exemption in order for it to actually be exempt, and also for our records to reflect that fact. So this is more like a cleanup.
Okay, that's what I figured. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I would move that we permanently exempt the units as new construction and adopt the proposed findings of facts and conclusions of law.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Foster. I believe a second from Commissioner Perosis. Let's take a vote.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
Commissioner Terosis,
Yes.
and Chair Sultan. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, our final jurisdictional item, NC1, is another permanent exemption on new construction, single-family home in this case. Case number 1826. Let's do a staff report on this one. Thank you.
Certainly, Commissioners. Ben Sperling is the owner of this property, and he built a single-family home on it. It's clearly new construction, and it's not otherwise subject to the rent control law from the Ellis Act or the removal permits. So staff is recommending that you approve his application and adopt the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Thank you. Would any commissioner like to ask a question, make a comment, or anything?
I have a really dumb question, but I'm gonna ask it because I felt like the staff report was pretty short. Like, why was this ever under rent control? Like, was there a multi-family home on this? Like, I'm just trying to understand. Are you saying that this is a vacant plot of land? Like, what was it before this?
No, there were a couple of units on this property before, but they were demolished when it was owner occupied, and under a previous policy that the board had. But as you know, that policy is no longer in place, and so nonetheless, this property is in fact has a single family home on it that's entirely new construction, and so it is subject to it qualifies for the exemption as new construction.
So are you saying that at some point in the very distant past, there were multifamily units on there subject to rent control that were neither Ellis, but they were owner occupied, and during that owner occupancy, the owner himself decided to just tear down the whole thing, and then nothing was on the structure?
Correct. There was. Correct.
There was. The board had a public comment. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Correct. The board there was a previous policy that the agency was following in those cases. That's no longer the case. And in that situation, the agency signed off on the demolition permit. And so the property was then demolished the buildings, the two buildings that were there, and built this single family home in its place.
How many years ago was that?
I believe it was about. I believe that the demolition took place in the last 3 to 4 years.
And you're saying 3 to 4 years ago, which I was here, we had a policy that you could just. I'm just confused, like, because what policy did we have that you could just demo rent controlled unit? Sorry, Allison. Thank you.
Sure.
My own confusion. Sorry.
As the board is aware, an owner occupant can get an exemption for 3 units or less. Previously, the board would allow the agency to sign off on a demolition permit for owner occupants who were enjoying that exemption. 6 months ago, we changed that policy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad we did, but unfortunately, here we are. So thanks. Okay. I'm sorry, Haka. I know this seems like minutia. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was going on here.
I'm glad you asked that. It was interesting.
Okay. Sorry, Haka. Did you want to say, or excuse me, Mr. Mordezai? I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right. I have nothing else to say.
Okay. Great. We all know each other too well here. I will then defer back to Chair Sultan because I'm ready to take a vote. So I don't think there was a motion on the table when I started asking these questions. So I'll move that we approve the owner occupancy exemption and the staff report here at 2818 2nd Street.
Second.
Great. Let's take a vote.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
Commissioner Terosis,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
and Chair Sultan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So just to be clear, Commissioner Trosis, when you made the motion, you said an owner occupancy exemption. I'm sure it was because of the conversation we just had.
Thank you.
Everybody voted for the new construction exemption, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Just to clear the record, please amend the motion to say the new exempt the new construction at
I still
Street. Yeah. Thank you, Director Condon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we're ready to adjourn, unless I missed something.
Wait, sorry.
Oh, yes.
So I wasn't just hallucinating. Was that what was in the late packet that we didn't need to read this?
Correct.
That's right. Secretary.
Are you referring to the appeal, Commissioner?
Sorry, I was like, I wondered what happened to 10A1, but I was thinking maybe the agenda situation got changed. Okay,
Please continue.
Great. Well, we'll be ready.
You're ahead. Right.
I also realized that quite belatedly. Okay, our next grant board meeting is January 13th. I guess we'll have the same. Yes.
Can I request, Director Condon, since we are launching in January with the new rent registry, is there a way that we could get a demonstration publicly, if you feel it's appropriate, in January, if we're ready to launch in January, so that the public knows features?
Well, the challenge is by your next board meeting, the data conversion will not yet be complete. It will be starting that weekend, and because of the amount of data that we have, it's going to take 2 weeks for the data conversion to complete 2 different 3-day weekends. So it won't be until February that we will have all of the data in the system, or the very end of January.
Okay.
So we could potentially do that for the February meeting.
Okay, so yeah, I'd like to request that we do that at the February meeting. And then perhaps at January, the second half of the legislative, well, it kind of already started, but really starts in January, the second half of this legislative session, and was just wondering, could we also get, an update from Mr. Augusta on anything that we could be doing proactively?
Yes, I will ask Mr. Augusta to join us on your next meeting.
Great. That was it. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, those are both great ideas. I look forward to that in 2022. All right, Secretary Ho, it's time for a roll call vote to adjourn.
No, I moved to adjourn.
Oh, gosh. That was
Second.
I second
it. Second.
Okay.
Second.
I know why.
Okay, Commissioner Terosis,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
and Chair Sultan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Holidays.
Yeah. Enjoy the holidays. See you in
Thank
January.
you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Ford. Bye, Ford.
Bye-bye.